Hey everyone, just want to do another episode of Back to Basics. So today we are going to talk about hypervisors and virtualization. These two are pretty much linked in the same genre of things, but of course they are two different aspects. Virtualization, you can think about, is a bigger picture, while the hypervisor is a subset. Let us begin. So in terms of hypervisors, there are type 1 and type 2. Just keep that in mind at the back of your mind for now. And we are going to talk about virtualization first. Virtualization refers to the act of creating a virtual version of something. And usually in our computer sense, it's about making a virtual version of a hardware. For example, a virtual hard disk, a virtual storage device, a virtual OS. And hypervisors, in contrast, is a software that regulates the virtualization process. So it allows us to create multiple virtual machines that allow us to work on several OSs at once. With hypervisor, we can run OS within an OS, or to run multiple OSs when originally it can only run one OS. So you will ask, why do we even need virtualization? One of the main reasons for it is modern hardware has improved significantly, such that with just running the day-to-day workloads, our CPU, our RAM are significantly underutilized. By having multiple workloads, by having many OSs running on the same hardware, allow us to better utilize the existing resources we have. Currently, graphics cards are extremely expensive, right? So with just one physical graphics card, perhaps you can have multiple virtual graphics cards to share across different workloads. As such, we have the cost efficiency, and there are also other reasons as well, because they are independent of the underlying hardware. The virtualized VMs can be moved between, be it your local device or to a remote location with ease. And another secondary reason is the separation of OSs allow a greater degree of segregation of data or privacy. So one OS is definitely pretty much segregated from another OS. So in a sense, it may be safer of sorts. Now let's step into the two types of hypervisor, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is called the bare metal hypervisor, and type 2 is the hosted hypervisor. Maybe it's easier if you just look at this picture. So type 1, just above the hardware, sits the hypervisor. And then you have the multiple guest OSs, from as many as unlimited to as little as 1. So in this case, above the hardware is immediately the hypervisor. You may hear of examples like VMware ESXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, and Citrix Zen Server. For type 2, these are probably more common for our personal use. So we have an existing host OS sitting on top of our hardware. Then we have the hypervisor, which allows us to have multiple guest OSs. So in the case of, for me, for example, previously I run my Linux boxes within my Windows OS, and the software I used were VMware Workstation Player and also VirtualBox. Let us delve deeper into the differences between the two types. So type 1, bare metal or native hypervisor, type 2, hosted hypervisor. In terms of the virtualization, type 1 is definitely hardware virtualization because this sits directly on top of the hardware, while type 2 is the OS virtualization. For scalability wise and performance, type 1 is of course better because it deals directly with hardware and there's no overhead. And for type 2, there is a little bit of reliance on the underlying OS to run certain operations. So that takes away some of the CPU, the RAM of the hardware. In terms of setup, Both are pretty simple, and in terms of personal use, Type 2 is very much simpler because it's just like installing another application. In terms of speed, similar to scalability, Type 2 is slower because of the system's dependency, while Type 1 is faster. Similar for performance, security. So which type would you choose? For enterprise use, the bare metal Type 1 hypervisors are preferable, primarily because of its independence from the host operating system and better efficiency, performance, and speed. And for personal or small business users, for example, when I learned on cybersecurity and I need multiple OSs or multiple boxes to attack one another, to scan one another, I used VMware Workstation Player and VirtualBox to quickly spin up multiple boxes of Ubuntu, Kali Linux, and other OSs so that I can test different ways of attacks at once. So that's all about hypervisors and virtualization. Hope you learned something just like I did, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.